In the heart of a lush, green valley lay the peaceful village of Harmony. The village was home to kind-hearted people who lived in beautifully decorated cottages surrounded by vibrant gardens. Harmony was known for its colourful festivals, where laughter filled the air and children played joyfully in the meadows. Yet despite its name, Harmony was not without its problems. In Harmony lived a young boy named Pete. Pete was a curious and clever child, always exploring the woods, fields, and streams near his home. However, Pete had one big problem. He was terribly afraid of spiders. Even the smallest spider could send him running in fear. One sunny afternoon, as Pete was playing by the stream, he heard a rustling in the bushes. His heart raced as he imagined a giant spider lurking nearby. He wanted to run, but his legs felt like they were stuck to the ground. Instead, a wise old owl named Oliver emerged from the bushes, his feathers shimmering in the sunlight. "Hello, Pete," said Oliver with a kind smile. "Why do you look so frightened?" Pete took a deep breath and explained his fear of spiders. Oliver listened patiently and then said, "Pete, courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to face it. One day, you will find the strength within you to overcome your fears." Pete nodded, though he wasn't sure he believed Oliver. But little did he know, his chance to prove his bravery would come sooner than he thought. One evening, as the villagers gathered in the town square for a night of music and dancing, a loud cry shattered the festive atmosphere. "Help! Help!" It was Mrs. Willow, the village baker. She ran into the square, her face pale with fear. "There's a giant spider in my bakery." The villagers gasped. Pete's heart pounded in his chest. The thought of a giant spider made him shiver, but he remembered Oliver's words. He clenched his fists, trying to muster some courage. "Who will help me?" cried Mrs. Willow. The villagers looked around, but no one stepped forward. Pete felt a tap on his shoulder. It was Oliver. "Pete, this is your chance to be brave," the wise old owl whispered. Pete swallowed hard. His legs felt like jelly, but he took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I'll help," he said, his voice trembling. The villagers murmured in surprise, but they parted to let Pete through. With Oliver perched on his shoulder, Pete walked towards the bakery, each step feeling heavier than the last. As they reached the bakery door, Pete could hear the skittering sound of the spider inside. "Remember, Pete, courage," said Oliver softly. Pete nodded, his fear battling with his determination. Inside the bakery, it was dark and eerie. Shadows loomed large on the walls, and the air was filled with the scent of freshly baked bread mixed with something else, something ominous. Pete's heart raced, but he kept moving forward, clutching a broom as his weapon. Then he saw it. A huge spider, its body the size of a loaf of bread, sitting in the corner near the oven. Its eyes glinted in the dim light, and its legs twitched menacingly. Pete froze. His first instinct was to run, but he remembered the villagers counting on him, and Oliver's words echoed in his mind. With trembling hands, Pete raised the broom. "You can do this," he whispered to himself. He took a step forward, and the spider reared back, hissing. Pete's grip tightened on the broom, and he took another step. Suddenly, the spider lunged. Pete swung the broom with all his might. The spider dodged and scuttled across the floor, weaving between bags of flour and jars of jam. Pete chased it, his fear gradually giving way to determination. Finally, Pete managed to corner the spider near a pile of sacks. With a swift and firm motion, he trapped it under a large wooden crate. Panting, he stepped back and realized he had done it. He had faced his fear and won. Oliver flew down and perched on the crate. "Well done, Pete. You've shown great bravery today." Pete smiled, feeling a warm sense of pride. The villagers, who had been watching anxiously from the doorway, erupted in cheers. Mrs. Willow hugged Pete tightly, thanking him for saving her bakery. A few days after his encounter with the giant spider, Pete was playing by the stream again when he noticed something glinting in the water. Curious, he waded in and picked up a small, old bottle with a rolled-up piece of paper inside. Carefully, he uncorked the bottle and pulled out the paper. It was a map. The map was old and faded, but Pete could make out the landmarks. The village of Harmony, the forest, the stream, and beyond that, a mysterious cave marked with an X. Intrigued, Pete showed the map to Oliver. "This looks like an adventure, Pete," said Oliver. "But remember, adventures often come with challenges." Pete's eyes sparkled with excitement and a hint of fear. "I'll do it," he said, determined to prove his newfound bravery. The next morning, Pete packed a bag with food, water, and a flashlight. Oliver perched on his shoulder, and they set off on their journey. They walked through the village, crossed the stream, and entered the dense forest. The trees towered above them, casting long shadows on the ground. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the path became narrow and winding. Strange sounds echoed around them, and Pete's imagination ran wild. He thought about turning back, but then he remembered the spider and how he had faced his fear. He pressed on, with Oliver guiding him. After hours of walking, they reached the entrance of the cave. It was dark and foreboding, with an eerie silence that sent shivers down Pete's spine. But he knew he couldn't turn back now. Pete and Oliver entered the cave cautiously. The air was cool and damp, and the walls glistened with moisture. Pete switched on his flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness. They followed the map, which led them through narrow passages and around sharp bends. Suddenly, they heard a low growl. Pete's heart pounded as they turned a corner and came face to face with a large, fierce-looking creature. It was a guardian of the cave, protecting the treasure marked on the map. Pete felt a surge of fear, but also a spark of determination. The creature advanced, and Pete stood his ground, remembering Oliver's words about courage. "I am not here to harm you," Pete said firmly. "I just want to find the treasure." To his surprise, the creature paused, tilting its head as if understanding him. Pete slowly reached into his bag and pulled out a piece of bread, offering it to the creature. It sniffed the bread, then took it gently from Pete's hand. The creature stepped aside, allowing Pete and Oliver to pass. They followed the map to the heart of the cave, where they found a chest filled with sparkling jewels and gold coins. But more importantly, there was a scroll with a message. "To the one who shows true bravery, this treasure shall bring prosperity and peace." Pete beamed with pride. He had not only faced his fears, but also found a way to help his village. With the treasure, Harmony would thrive even more. They returned to the village as heroes. The villagers celebrated their safe return, and Pete shared the treasure with everyone. From that day on, Pete was known as Peacemaker Pete, the boy who faced his fears and brought peace and prosperity to Harmony. And as for the spiders, well, Pete still didn't like them, but he no longer let his fear control him. He had learned that true bravery comes from within, and with courage he could face anything.